Emma Park's sneakers squeaked against the polished hospital floor as she rushed down the corridor of Manhattan Memorial, her stethoscope bouncing against her chest. 3 consecutive 12-hour shifts had left dark circles under her eyes that not even her most expensive concealer could hide. Not that she could afford expensive concealer these days. "Dr. Park!" The charge nurse waved from the station. "Trauma coming in. ETA 2 minutes." Emma nodded, quickly downing the last lukewarm sip of her 4th coffee. "Got it, Diane. What's the story?" "Elderly male, possible cardiac event at the Four Seasons. Private ambulance bringing him in." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Private ambulance? Must be nice." "Apparently he's someone important," Diane said with a knowing look. "The kind of important that gets the hospital director pacing in his office." Emma snorted. "The kind of important that'll generate paperwork for days." As if on cue, the automatic doors slid open and the paramedics rushed in with a gurney. On it lay an elderly man in an impeccably tailored suit, now rumpled and open to reveal his chest, where monitoring leads were attached. Despite his pallor, there was something regal about him, the kind of dignity that money cultivated over decades. "Harold Thornton, 82 years old," the paramedic announced, "complained of chest pain and dizziness during a business meeting. Vitals stable but irregular heartbeat detected en route." Emma's brain clicked into doctor mode, immediately directing the team as they transferred the patient to an examination bay. She was checking his pupils when a commotion at the entrance caught her attention. "Sir, you need to wait. That's my grandfather. I'm coming in." "Dude." The voice was commanding, brooking no argument, and a moment later, a man in his early 30s burst through the trauma room doors. 6 feet of bespoke suit and controlled panic, with dark hair swept back from a face that probably graced the society pages regularly. "Sir, you can't be in here during—" Emma began. "Jack Thornton," he interrupted, his eyes never leaving his grandfather's face. "Whatever he needs, do it. Money is no object." Emma bit back a retort about how medicine didn't work that way. Instead, she said firmly, "Mr. Thornton, the best thing you can do for your grandfather right now is let us work. Someone will update you shortly." Their eyes met, hers steady and professional, his intense and worried. For a moment, he seemed ready to argue, but then the old man on the bed groaned. "Jack, stop intimidating the doctor," Harold Thornton rasped. "I taught you better manners." Jack's posture softened immediately. "Gramps, you scared the hell out of me." "Language?" Harold chided weakly before looking at Emma. "My apologies, doctor. My grandson lacks patience but means well." Emma smiled despite herself. "No apology necessary, Mr. Thornton. Now, I need to examine you properly, which means—" She looked pointedly at Jack. "I'll be right outside," Jack conceded, squeezing his grandfather's hand before backing away. 3 hours later, Harold was stabilized and resting comfortably in a private room that had materialized with surprising speed. Preliminary tests suggested a minor arrhythmia rather than a full-blown heart attack, but Emma had ordered a full cardiac workup to be safe. She was updating the chart at the nurse's station when Jack approached, coffee in hand. "Dr. Park," he said, reading her name badge. "I brought you coffee, black. The nurse said that's how you take it." Emma eyed the cup suspiciously. It wasn't hospital coffee. The logo belonged to the artisanal coffee shop 2 blocks away that charged $7 for a basic brew. "Thank you, but I'm fine," she said, though her body screamed for caffeine. "It's just coffee, not a bribe," he said with a hint of amusement. "Though if it were a bribe, it would be a pathetically small one." Emma reluctantly accepted the cup. "Your grandfather is stable. The arrhythmia seems to have resolved, but we're keeping him overnight for observation and running some additional tests tomorrow." Jack nodded, relief washing over his features. In the calmer light of the corridor, Emma noticed how his eyes crinkled at the corners when his expression changed, the only sign of imperfection in an otherwise flawless face. "Thank you," he said simply. He's all I have left of real family." The unexpected vulnerability caught her off guard. "He seems like a fighter, and he clearly cares about you." Jack smiled ruefully. He does. Too much sometimes. He hesitated, then asked, "Can I see him again?" "Briefly. He needs rest." Emma led Jack back to Harold's room, where the elder Thornton was propped up against pillows, looking more like an inconvenienced CEO than a cardiac patient. "Ah, the good doctor returns," Harold said, his voice stronger now. "And she's brought my disappointing grandson." "Disappointing?" Emma couldn't help asking. "Don't encourage him," Jack warned. Harold's eyes twinkled mischievously. "Jack here is brilliant at business but terrible at life. 32 years old, and can't maintain a relationship longer than a corporate merger." "Gramps," Jack protested, "Dr. Park doesn't need to hear this." "She should know what she's dealing with," Harold countered, then winced slightly as he shifted. Emma stepped forward, concerned. "Mr. Thornton, are you experiencing pain?" "Just my heart breaking over Jack's perpetual bachelorhood," Harold quipped, but allowed Emma to check his pulse. "Your heart rate is elevated again," Emma frowned, reaching for her stethoscope. "I think we should—" "What would help," Harold interrupted, "is knowing my grandson won't die alone, surrounded by nothing but money and regrets." Jack ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "This again? You're using a heart episode to guilt me about being single?" "I'm using every tool at my disposal," Harold replied unapologetically. "The company bylaws are clear. The next CEO must demonstrate stability in both business and personal life. Your father understood that. Dad also died of a stress-induced heart attack at 47, Jack shot back. "Forgive me if I'm not racing down the same path." Emma cleared her throat awkwardly. "I should give you two some privacy." "No, stay," Harold insisted, grabbing her wrist with surprising strength. "You seem sensible, Doctor. Talk some sense into him." "That's really not my place." "What if I told you," Harold continued, his eyes suddenly shrewd, "that Thornton Healthcare Foundation forgives medical school debt for promising physicians?" Emma froze. Her $200,000 in student loans flashed before her eyes. The reason she lived with two roommates at 30, why she picked up extra shifts until exhaustion clouded her judgment, why she ate ramen 3 nights a week despite knowing better. "Mr. Thornton, that's inappropriate," she said stiffly. "Is it?" Harold asked innocently. "We do it all the time. Special cases." "Exceptional talent." Jack looked mortified. "Gramps, stop. You can't bribe Dr. Park." "Not a bribe," Harold said, echoing Jack's earlier words. "An investment. The foundation invests in promising medical talent. Dr. Park here saved my life today." "I did my job," Emma corrected. "And you didn't have a heart attack." "Semantics." Harold waved dismissively. "Jack, notice how direct she is." "No nonsense. You need that in your life." Jack's jaw tightened. "I'm sorry, Dr. Park. My grandfather thinks he's being clever, but he's just delirious from medication." "Not medicated yet," Harold pointed out. "Just making efficient use of a cardiac episode." Emma had had enough. "Mr. Thornton, you need rest. I'll have a nurse bring your medication, and we can discuss foundation opportunities through proper channels another time." Harold chuckled. "She's diplomatic too. Perfect." As Emma turned to leave, Harold called out, "Consider what I said, Doctor. Life's too short to drown in debt when solutions present themselves." Later that night, as Emma's shift finally ended, she found Jack waiting near the staff exit, his tie loosened, looking as exhausted as she felt. "Dr. Park," he said, straightening when he saw her, "I wanted to apologize for my grandfather." Emma sighed, too tired for social niceties. "It's fine. I've dealt with worse." "Has anyone ever tried to set you up with their grandson while having a cardiac event?" Despite herself, Emma smiled. "That's a new one." They walked together toward the parking garage, an oddly comfortable silence between them. "He's not wrong about the foundation," Jack said finally. "We do forgive medical school debt. It's not contingent on—" whatever he was implying. Emma stopped walking. "Mr. Thornton—" Jack, she amended. "I appreciate that, but I don't take shortcuts. I'll pay off my loans eventually." "Even if it takes 20 years?" he asked, genuinely curious. Emma's smile turned brittle. 27, according to my last calculation. But who's counting? Jack studied her for a moment, then said, "Have dinner with me." "Excuse me." "Not like that," he clarified quickly. "I have a proposition for you, one that might solve both our problems." Emma laughed incredulously. "I don't even know what your problem is." "My grandfather wasn't entirely delusional," Jack explained. "There is a clause in the company bylaws about demonstrating personal stability before I can take over as CEO. The board interprets that as being in a committed relationship. That sounds legally questionable," Jack shrugged. "Family company, family rules. If I don't show I can maintain a relationship by his 83rd birthday, 4 months from now, control goes to the board until I mature emotionally." "And what does this have to do with me?" Emma asked, though she was beginning to see where this was heading. "You need money. I need to appear to be in a stable relationship." Jack's eyes held hers. "We could help each other." Emma stared at him, wondering if exhaustion was making her hallucinate. "Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "A mutually beneficial arrangement," Jack confirmed. "You pretend to date me, convince my grandfather and the board I'm capable of commitment, and I'll pay off your medical school debt. All of it." The absurdity of the situation hit Emma like a wave. Here she was, in a hospital parking garage at midnight, being propositioned by a man who looked like he'd stepped off the cover of Fortune magazine. "This is insane," she said flatly. "And probably unethical." "Is it?" Jack challenged. "We're both consenting adults. No one gets hurt. You get financial freedom, I get my birthright, and my grandfather gets peace of mind. Until we break up after you secure your position." Jack nodded. "A mutually agreed upon, amicable parting after an appropriate amount of time. Simple." Nothing about this was simple. Yet the weight of Emma's debt, the constant companion that dictated every life decision, seemed to press down on her shoulders with renewed force. "Why me?" she asked finally. "You could hire an actress or date someone from your social circle." "My grandfather isn't easily fooled," Jack said. "He liked you instantly. That rarely happens. Plus, you already have a connection to our world through the hospital." Emma shook her head in disbelief. "This is crazy. I don't even know you." "That's what dating is for," Jack pointed out. "Getting to know each other. We just have a predetermined endpoint and financial arrangement." A gust of cold March wind blew through the garage, making Emma shiver in her thin scrubs. The sensible part of her brain, the part that had gotten her through medical school and residency, screamed that this was ridiculous, potentially career-damaging, and definitely a bad idea. Yet another part, the part drowning in debt and exhaustion, whispered about freedom, about finally being able to breathe. "Sleep on it," Jack said, sensing her conflict. "Have dinner with me tomorrow. No commitment, just discussion." "I have shifts for the next 3 days," Emma said automatically. Jack smiled. "I'll work around your schedule. That's what attentive boyfriends do, right?" Before Emma could respond, he handed her a business card. "My number. Text me when you're free." As he walked away, Emma called after him, "I haven't said yes to anything." Jack turned, walking backward for a few steps. "You haven't said no either, Dr. Park, and in business that's all the opening I need." Emma watched him disappear into a sleek black car, the business card heavy in her hand despite its lightness. "This is insane," she muttered to herself as she headed toward her decade-old Honda with the check engine light that had been on for months. Completely insane. Yet as she drove home to her cramped apartment, the card burning a hole in her pocket, Emma couldn't help but wonder, what if insanity was exactly what her carefully planned life needed? Emma had convinced herself she wouldn't text Jack Thornton. For 3 days, as she moved through her shifts in a fog of exhaustion and caffeine, she repeated the mantra, "I am a professional. I don't make deals with patients' grandsons." Yet on day 4, as she stared at her bank account, depleted after paying her monthly loan minimum and rent, the business card found its way back into her hands. "This is just dinner," she told her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror. "A discussion, nothing more." Her fingers typed before her brain could object. "Dr. Park here. Free tomorrow night after 7. Jack's response came seconds later. "Excellent. Car will pick you up at 7:30. Address?" Emma hesitated, then provided her apartment building's address, immediately regretting it. What if her roommates saw? What story would she tell them? The next evening, Emma found herself in the unusual position of having time to prepare for a social engagement. She stood before her closet, realizing with dismay that her wardrobe consisted primarily of scrubs, workout clothes, and a few casual outfits, nothing suitable for whatever upscale restaurant Jack Thornton would inevitably choose. Her roommate Zoe leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Hot date?" "Work thing," Emma lied, pulling out the one cocktail dress she owned, a navy blue number purchased for a medical school classmate's wedding 3 years ago. "Work thing requiring the emergency dress?" Zoe raised an eyebrow skeptically. "With whom? The hospital director?" "Something like that." Emma held the dress against herself. "Too formal." "Depends on the restaurant," Zoe said, then narrowed her eyes. "Emma Park, are you being sketchy? You're never sketchy." Emma sighed. "It's complicated. A potential career opportunity." This wasn't entirely untrue. Freedom from debt would certainly advance her career. Still, guilt pricked at her conscience. At exactly 7:30, Emma's phone buzzed with a text. "Car waiting downstairs." She expected a taxi, maybe a town car if Jack was feeling extravagant. What she found instead was a gleaming Bentley, its driver standing at attention beside the rear door. "Dr. Park?" he asked politely. Emma glanced around the street, suddenly self-conscious. "Yes, that's me. Mr. Thornton is already at the restaurant," the driver explained, opening the door to reveal an interior that probably cost more than her annual salary. 20 minutes later, they arrived at an unmarked door in Tribeca. The driver escorted Emma inside, where they were met by a hostess who clearly recognized her companion. "This way, please," she said, leading them through a dimly lit restaurant filled with people who exuded wealth and influence. Even in her best dress, Emma felt painfully underdressed. Jack stood when she approached, and Emma was struck again by how effortlessly he commanded attention. In a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, he looked like he belonged on a billboard. "Emma," he said warmly, as though they were old friends, "you look lovely." "This place is—" Emma searched for an appropriate word as she took in the minimalist decor and hushed conversations. "Private," Jack supplied. "The owner values discretion. Perfect for our discussion." Once they were seated and had ordered, Jack selecting a wine without consulting the price, Emma got straight to the point. "This arrangement you're proposing is essentially a contract. I want to understand the terms." Jack smiled appreciatively. "Direct. I like that." He leaned forward. "Here's what I propose. We date publicly for 4 months. Attend events together, be seen at appropriate venues, convince my grandfather and the board that I've found someone special." 4 months seems brief for someone special, Emma pointed out. "We'll have a convincing backstory. Perhaps we've been quietly seeing each other for some time before going public." Emma took a sip of water. "And my compensation?" "Full repayment of your medical school loans within the first month," Jack stated, "plus a monthly stipend to cover any expenses related to our arrangement, clothing, transportation, time compensation." Emma nearly choked. "Within the first month? All of it?" "I don't see the point in dragging it out," Jack said pragmatically. "You fulfill your end, I fulfill mine." The waiter arrived with their appetizers, something artistic involving truffles that Emma would never have ordered for herself. She waited until they were alone again before speaking. "What exactly would be expected of me?" Jack spread his hands. "Nothing inappropriate. We appear as a couple in public. Attend dinners, charity events, family gatherings. You'll need to learn some basics about the company and my background." "And private expectations?" Emma asked bluntly. Jack's expression remained neutral. "There are none. This is a business arrangement, not a dating service. We maintain separate residences, separate personal lives. When the contract concludes, we part ways amicably. Emma picked at her food, mind racing. Your grandfather is my patient. There are ethical considerations. He won't be your patient forever, Jack countered, and technically our arrangement doesn't affect his care. It absolutely could affect his care if he discovers the truth. Jack conceded the point with a slight nod. We ensure he never discovers the truth. The main courses arrived. Emma hadn't even registered what she'd ordered when presented with the menu of items without prices. The plate before her contained what appeared to be perfectly cooked scallops on a bed of something vibrant and green. What happens if one of us wants to end the arrangement early? Emma asked, cutting into a scallop. Financial penalties, Jack said without hesitation. If you terminate without cause, you refund a prorated portion of the loan payment. If I terminate without cause, you keep everything plus a severance payment. Emma raised an eyebrow. You've thought this through. I'm a businessman, Jack said with a shrug. Contingency planning is second nature. They ate in silence for a moment, Emma's mind sorting through the implications. The debt-free life dangled before her was dizzyingly appealing. No more extra shifts, maybe even enough savings to move to her own place. What about my career? She finally asked. I can't compromise my reputation at the hospital. Your reputation would only improve, Jack assured her. The Thornton name opens doors in medical circles. Research opportunities, speaking engagements, connections to the best hospitals globally. Emma frowned. I don't want advantages I haven't earned. Jack studied her with genuine curiosity. Has anyone ever told you that your moral compass is exhaustingly rigid? Frequently, Emma admitted, usually right before I refuse to do something questionable. And yet you're here, Jack observed, considering my questionable proposal. Emma met his gaze unflinchingly. $200,000 in debt makes even rigid moral compasses wobble. Jack laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face from merely handsome to almost boyishly charming. I believe we can work together, Dr. Park. The dessert menus arrived, but Emma shook her head. If we're going to do this, I have conditions of my own. Jack set the menu aside, giving her his full attention. I'm listening. First, once your grandfather is discharged, I transfer his care to another physician, Emma stated firmly. I won't directly lie to a patient. Agreed. Second, this remains strictly professional. No blurred lines, no real dating, no physical involvement. Jack smiled slightly. Considering I barely have time to sleep between board meetings, that won't be difficult to maintain. Third, Emma continued, we establish clear boundaries for the public narrative. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. Your authenticity is precisely why my grandfather liked you, Jack pointed out, though we might need to upgrade your wardrobe for certain events. Emma ignored the jab. Fourth, when this ends, it ends cleanly. No lingering obligations, no complications. Like any good business transaction, Jack agreed. Anything else? Emma hesitated, then added, I want everything in writing, legal, binding, and confidential. Jack nodded approvingly. My lawyers will draw up an agreement. Anything else? Emma took a deep breath. Yes, I want to visit Harold tomorrow, not as his doctor, but as your girlfriend. If he reacts badly, the deal is off. Jack considered this, then nodded. Fair enough. Though I should warn you, he'll be thrilled. One more question, Emma said as the waiter cleared their plates. Why go to all this trouble? Surely there are women in your social circle who would genuinely want to date you, inheritance or not. Jack's expression turned guarded. Dating within my circle comes with complications. Hidden agendas, family alliances, social climbing. At least with you, the agenda is transparent. That's oddly refreshing, Emma admitted. Precisely. Jack raised his wine glass. To transparency in our deception. Emma reluctantly clinked her glass against his. That's a terrible toast. Jack's mouth quirked. How about to freedom? Your financial freedom. My freedom from board oversight. Better, Emma conceded, taking a sip of the wine she'd barely touched. As they left the restaurant, Jack said, The car will take you home. I'll have my assistant contact you tomorrow with details about visiting my grandfather. You have an assistant who handles your fake dating schedule? Emma asked incredulously. Andrea handles everything except breathing for me, Jack said. Don't worry, she's the soul of discretion, part of why she's paid extraordinarily well. At her apartment building, the driver opened Emma's door. Before she stepped out, Jack said, "One last thing. We should probably start using first names consistently. Dr. Park doesn't exactly scream intimate relationship." "Right," Emma agreed awkwardly. "Good night, Jack." "Good night, Emma." The way he said her name, deliberate as if testing how it felt, sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. Emma watched the Bentley drive away, then trudged up to her apartment. Zoe and their other roommate Priya were watching a movie in the living room. "How was the work thing?" Zoe asked, making air quotes. "Interesting," Emma replied vaguely. "Potentially life-changing." "Ooh, cryptic," Priya teased. "Must be serious if you're being all mysterious." If only they knew, Emma thought as she retreated to her bedroom. She changed into pajamas and sat on her bed, finally allowing herself to process the evening. What had she just agreed to? A 4-month performance for financial freedom? It seemed too good to be true, which meant it probably was. Yet the prospect of being debt-free within a month. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Contract being drafted. My assistant will contact you at 9 a.m. regarding hospital visit. Sleep well. JT." Emma saved the number, then typed back, "Thank you for dinner. Still processing everything. We'll be ready at 9. EP." She added the initials as an afterthought, mimicking his formality. It felt safer somehow, keeping this transactional professional. The next morning, precisely at 9, Emma's phone rang. "Dr. Park, this is Andrea Winters, Jack Thornton's executive assistant," said a crisp, efficient voice. "Mr. Thornton asked me to coordinate your visit to Manhattan Memorial this morning." "Yes, hello," Emma replied, suddenly feeling underprepared. "I'm available after 11. Perfect. Car will collect you at 11:15. Mr. Thornton will meet you at the hospital." Andrea paused, then added in a slightly softer tone, "He's mentioned the nature of your arrangement. I'll be handling the logistical aspects moving forward, including the financial transfers once the agreement is signed." Emma felt her face flush. "I see. I assure you complete confidentiality," Andrea continued professionally. "My role is to ensure everything proceeds smoothly for both parties." After hanging up, Emma spent an inordinate amount of time deciding what to wear. What did one wear to visit one's fake boyfriend's grandfather in the hospital? She finally settled on dark jeans, a soft blue sweater, and low heels. Casual but put together. At 11:15 exactly, a text alerted her that the car had arrived. Today it was a more subdued Mercedes, though still luxurious beyond anything Emma would normally experience. At the hospital, she felt a strange dissonance walking through the doors, not in scrubs, nodding to colleagues who gave her curious glances. Jack waited in the lobby, checking his watch, a habit Emma was beginning to recognize as a nervous tic rather than impatience. "Ready?" he asked instead of greeting her. Emma nodded, suddenly nervous. "How do you want to play this?" "Follow my lead," Jack said, guiding her toward the elevators with a light touch at the small of her back. The casual contact felt strange, but Emma forced herself not to stiffen. In the elevator, Jack said quietly, "Gramps is being discharged tomorrow. His doctor, not you, says he's recovering well." "Dr. Sharma is excellent," Emma confirmed. "Your grandfather is in good hands." The elevator doors opened, and Jack's hand found hers. His palm was warm and dry against her suddenly clammy one. Emma fought the impulse to pull away. "Remember," Jack murmured, "we've been dating quietly for 2 months, met at a hospital fundraiser." Emma nodded, focusing on steadying her breathing. This was acting, no different from the white lies she sometimes told patients to comfort them, a necessary fiction. Harold Thornton was sitting up in bed, looking remarkably improved and imperious despite his hospital gown. His eyes lit up when he saw them, then widened further when he noticed their joined hands. "Well, well," he said, satisfaction evident in his voice. "What's this?" Jack's expression softened in a way Emma hadn't seen before, a genuine affection that momentarily distracted her from their charade. "Gramps," he said warmly, "Emma and I wanted to tell you something." Harold's eyes gleamed with triumph. "I knew it. The moment I saw you two together, I knew there was a spark." Emma found herself blushing despite knowing this was all fabricated. "It's not what you think, Mr. Thornton." "Call me Harold, dear," he insisted. "And what is it I think?" Jack squeezed Emma's hand, a signal to follow his lead. "Emma and I have actually been seeing each other for a couple of months. We met at the hospital fundraiser in January." "The cardiac wing benefit?" Harold asked, looking delighted. Jack nodded. "We've been keeping it quiet because of Emma's position here and because, well, we wanted to be sure before going public." Harold turned his shrewd gaze to Emma. "And are you sure now, Doctor?" The direct question caught Emma off guard. She looked at Jack, who returned her gaze with an intensity that seemed almost real. In that moment, it was surprisingly easy to say, "We're taking it day by day, but it feels right." The words tasted strange in her mouth, not entirely false, yet certainly not true. Harold's face softened with genuine pleasure. "This is the best medicine you could have prescribed, Doctor, better than any pill they're giving me." Jack released Emma's hand to adjust his grandfather's pillows. "Don't get too excited, Gramps. Doctor's orders." "Bah!" Harold waved dismissively. "Excitement keeps me young." He fixed Emma with an approving look. "You've chosen well, Jack. A woman of substance, not another of those fashion plates you usually parade around." "Gramps," Jack warned, but Harold continued unperturbed. "Beauty and brains and backbone. Reminds me of your grandmother." He reached for Emma's hand. "You'll come to dinner once I'm home? Sunday dinners are a tradition." Emma began, looking to Jack for guidance. "She works odd hours, Gramps," Jack interjected smoothly. "But we'll make it when she's free." "Good, good." Harold settled back against his pillows, looking satisfied. "Now tell me, how did my clueless grandson convince a smart woman like you to give him a chance?" For the next hour, Emma and Jack wove a fictional tale of their relationship. Coffee after the fundraiser, text messages, quiet dinners when their schedules aligned. With each fabricated detail, Emma felt simultaneously more comfortable with the deception and more uneasy about its implications. When Harold began to tire, Jack suggested they leave. "Rest, Gramps. I'll see you tomorrow for discharge." "Bring Emma to the house on Saturday," Harold instructed. "Andrea can arrange it." In the hallway outside, Jack and Emma maintained their couple facade until they reached the elevator. Once alone, they dropped hands simultaneously, as if by unspoken agreement. "That went well," Jack observed, pressing the lobby button. "He bought it completely," Emma agreed, flexing her fingers subtly. "Your grandfather really wants to see you settled." "He's old-fashioned that way," Jack said with a shrug. "Family legacy, continuity, all that." They rode in silence for a moment before Emma asked, "Was that true, what he said about your grandmother?" "That I remind him of her." Something flickered across Jack's face, a brief vulnerability quickly masked. "In some ways, perhaps. She was a doctor too before she married my grandfather. Brilliant by all accounts." "You didn't know her?" "She died when I was very young," Jack said, his tone making it clear the topic was closed. In the lobby, they found themselves facing Dr. Sharma, Harold's new attending physician, and the hospital director, deep in conversation. Jack immediately slipped his hand back into Emma's, the transition so smooth she barely had time to register it before the men noticed them. "Mr. Thornton?" the director greeted effusively, then noticed Emma with surprise. "Dr. Park, I didn't realize you were acquainted outside of professional capacity." Jack's arm slid around Emma's waist, pulling her subtly closer. "Emma and I have been seeing each other for some time, actually. We've kept it quiet due to her professional ethics regarding my grandfather's care." Emma forced a smile, hyper-aware of Jack's hand on her waist. "Which is why Dr. Sharma has taken over Mr. Thornton's care." Dr. Sharma, ever professional, simply nodded. "Your grandfather is doing quite well, Mr. Thornton. We expect a full recovery with proper follow-up care." The director, however, couldn't quite hide his surprise, or calculation. Emma could practically see him connecting dots. Young doctor, wealthy heir to hospital donor family, potential fundraising opportunities. "This is wonderful news," he said with transparent insincerity. "Both Mr. Thornton's recovery and your personal happiness." After a few more minutes of uncomfortable small talk, they finally escaped to the waiting car. "Well," Emma said as they pulled away from the hospital, "that's done. The director will ensure the entire staff knows by tomorrow." Jack looked unapologetic. "Hospital gossip works in our favor. The more people who believe we're genuinely together, the more convincing it is." Emma stared out the window, watching the familiar streets pass by. "I just realized something. This charade will follow me professionally, even after we break up." Jack turned to study her profile. "Is that a problem?" "It might be," Emma admitted. "I've worked hard to be taken seriously." Being known as Jack Thornton's ex could undermine that. Or, Jack countered, being associated with the Thornton name opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. "Either way, you'll be debt-free." Emma turned to face him. "Is that how you see the world? Everything as a transaction? Isn't that what this is?" Jack gestured between them. "A transaction?" "Yes," Emma agreed, ignoring the strange disappointment that accompanied her answer. "Just a transaction." The car slowed in front of her apartment building. Before Emma could reach for the door, Jack said, "The contract will be ready tomorrow. Once you've reviewed and signed it, the funds will transfer within 24 hours. The reality of what they were doing hit Emma with renewed force. "And then I'm officially your girlfriend." "Contractually speaking, yes," Jack confirmed. Emma nodded, suddenly eager to escape the car and its occupant. "I'll review it carefully." "I'd expect nothing less, Dr. Park," Jack said, a hint of that genuine smile breaking through his business facade. "Until tomorrow." Emma watched the car drive away, then slowly climbed the stairs to her apartment. What had she gotten herself into? And why did the purely transactional nature of their arrangement suddenly feel more complicated than it should? 2 weeks into their relationship, Emma found herself standing in her apartment surrounded by garment bags. Andrea had arranged a shopping service, racks of designer clothing that would have been far beyond Emma's budget under normal circumstances. "You can't wear that," Jack said, frowning at the simple black dress Emma had selected for their first official public appearance. "What's wrong with it?" Emma asked defensively. "Nothing if we were going to a funeral," Jack replied. "Tonight is the Thornton Foundation's spring gala. Think color celebration." Emma rifled through the options, settling on an emerald silk gown that felt like water against her skin. "This?" Jack's eyes widened slightly. "That would work." 3 hours later, Emma barely recognized herself in the mirror of the hotel suite Jack had arranged for her to prepare in. Hair styled in elegant waves, makeup professionally applied, and the emerald dress clinging to curves she usually hid under scrubs. A knock at the door announced Jack's arrival. When Emma opened it, there was a moment of genuine surprise on his face. "You clean up well, Dr. Park," he said, his voice a touch lower than usual. "You sound shocked," Emma replied, oddly pleased by his reaction. "Not shocked, impressed." Jack offered his arm. "Ready for your debut as the woman who tamed Jack Thornton?" Emma accepted his arm with more confidence than she felt. "As ready as I'll ever be." The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel glittered with New York's elite, old money mingling with new tech fortunes, celebrities with socialites, all gathered to support the Thornton Foundation's medical initiatives. "Remember," Jack murmured as they paused at the entrance, "you belong here as much as anyone." Before Emma could respond, they were announced. Mr. Jack Thornton and Dr. Emma Park. The subtle shift in conversation, the momentary dip as heads turned to assess Jack's new companion, sent Emma's heart racing. Jack's hand pressed reassuringly against her lower back, guiding her forward. Harold Thornton, holding court near the center of the room, beamed at their approach. "There they are," he announced to his circle. "My grandson and his brilliant doctor." What followed was a whirlwind of introductions. Emma met board members, family friends, and hospital administrators, all clearly curious about the woman who had supposedly captured the elusive Jack Thornton's attention. "How did you two meet?" asked a sleek woman Emma recognized as the hospital's head of neurology. "Hospital fundraiser," Emma replied, the practice story now coming easily. "Jack spilled champagne on my dress." Jack played along perfectly. "Best clumsy moment of my life. And now you're inseparable," observed a silver-haired board member with knowing eyes. "When our schedules allow," Emma said truthfully. Their arrangement included 3 public appearances per week and occasional private meetings to coordinate stories. As dinner was announced, Jack whispered, "You're doing great. They're buying it completely." The evening progressed smoothly until dessert, when a stunning blonde approached their table. "Jackie," she purred, completely ignoring Emma. "I've missed you at the club." Jack's posture stiffened imperceptibly. "Vanessa, I've been busy." "So I see." Vanessa finally acknowledged Emma with a cool glance. "And who is your friend?" "Emma Park," Jack said, his hand covering Emma's on the table. "My girlfriend." The word sounded strange in Emma's ears, both right and wrong simultaneously. Vanessa's perfect eyebrows arched. "Girlfriend? How unexpected." She turned to Emma. "Jack doesn't usually do girlfriends. More of a catch-and-release fisherman." Emma felt Jack tense beside her but maintained her composure. "People change when they meet the right person." "Do they?" Vanessa smiled like a shark. "How fascinating. Well, don't let me interrupt your experiment, Jackie." As she sauntered away, Jack muttered, "Sorry about that. X complication." You didn't mention X's in the contract," Emma said lightly, though something uncomfortable twisted in her stomach. "Didn't seem relevant," Jack replied, but his grip on her hand had tightened. Later, as they swayed on the dance floor, another skill Emma had hurriedly brushed up on, Jack asked, "Are you sorry you agreed to this?" Emma considered the question carefully. 2 weeks of pretense had been exhausting but also oddly exhilarating, and her student loans gone. The relief still felt surreal. "No," she said finally, "though your world takes some getting used to." Jack's hand was warm against her back as he guided her through a turn. "You're adapting admirably. The board members are impressed. Is that what matters, their impression?" "For our purposes, yes. Our purposes." The reminder of their arrangement dampened something in Emma's chest. This wasn't real. The dancing, the smiles, the comfortable way Jack's hand fit against her waist. "I should warn you," Jack continued, oblivious to her thoughts. "Now that we've gone public, the attention will intensify. Gossip columns, social media speculation." "I don't use social media," Emma said. "Hospital policy discourages it." Jack laughed softly. "That won't stop them from using you. By tomorrow, they'll be analyzing everything from your dress to your educational background." "Sounds exhausting?" "It is," Jack agreed, something vulnerable flickering across his features. "One reason I prefer business to this." Emma studied him, seeing past the perfect exterior to the weariness beneath. "Is any of it real for you? The parties, the connections?" Jack's eyes met hers, unexpectedly serious. "Some parts. Not enough." The music ended before Emma could respond. As they left the dance floor, Harold approached, looking pleased but tired. "You two are the talk of the evening," he said approvingly. "Jack, the board is impressed. Emma, you've charmed everyone." Jack's professional mask slipped back into place. "Exactly as planned, Gramps." The old man's eyes twinkled. "Is it? Sometimes the best business deals are the ones that turn into something more." Emma felt heat rise to her cheeks as Jack's arm tightened around her waist. "We're taking it one day at a time," she said diplomatically. "Smart," Harold nodded. "Though not too much time, I hope. I'm not getting any younger." After seeing Harold safely into his car, Jack and Emma waited for their own. The spring night was cool, and Jack draped his jacket over Emma's shoulders without comment. "Your grandfather is determined to see you settled," Emma observed. "He married young," Jack explained. "Believes it's the foundation of success." "And you don't?" Jack shrugged. "I've seen too many marriages in my circle fail spectacularly. Business partnerships are cleaner." "Is that how you see relationships? As business partnerships?" "The successful ones, yes," Jack said matter-of-factly. "Clear expectations, mutual benefits, exit strategies." "That sounds—" Emma searched for the right word. "Practical?" "Lonely," she finished softly. Jack studied her for a long moment before their car arrived. "Perhaps, but predictable." The ride to Emma's apartment was quiet, both lost in thought. When they arrived, Jack walked her to the door, maintaining the facade for any watching eyes. "Sunday dinner at Gramps' house," Jack reminded her. "More intimate than tonight. Family only." Emma nodded, suddenly nervous. "What should I know about your family?" "Just my Aunt Caroline, Harold's daughter, and her husband Robert. They're harmless but nosy." Jack hesitated, then added, "My parents died when I was young. Car accident." "I'm sorry," Emma said, genuinely moved by this glimpse into his past. Jack dismissed the sympathy with practiced ease. "Long time ago. The point is, Sunday will be more personal, more questions." "I'll be prepared," Emma assured him. An awkward moment followed. The natural rhythm of a date would include a goodnight kiss, but their contract explicitly excluded physical affection beyond hand-holding and casual touches. Jack solved the dilemma by leaning in to kiss her cheek, close enough to appear intimate to observers, respecting their boundaries in reality. "Good night, Emma," he said, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Then, more quietly, "You were perfect tonight." As Emma watched him leave, she touched her cheek where the warmth of his lips lingered. Perfect wasn't a word often applied to her practical, overworked life. Yet for one evening, in a borrowed dress and a borrowed relationship, she'd been exactly that. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying. Inside her apartment, Zoe and Priya waited with wide eyes and endless questions about Emma's mystery man. The cover story rolled easily from Emma's lips. Successful businessman, recently reconnected, taking it slowly. "He's gorgeous," Priya declared, scrolling through her phone. "Already on social media. Thornton Heir debuts serious girlfriend at charity gala." Emma's stomach lurched. "That was fast. Welcome to dating a one-percenter," Zoe said. "You sure you know what you're getting into?" Emma thought about the contract hidden in her desk drawer, the cleared student loans, the calculated smiles and practiced story. "Not really," she admitted truthfully, "but I'm figuring it out." Later, alone in her room, Emma received a text from Jack. "You made the society pages. Dr. Emma Park stole the show, and possibly Jack Thornton's heart. Well done." Emma stared at the message, uncertain how to respond to praise for a performance she wasn't entirely sure was still just a performance. Finally, she typed, "All part of the service. Good night, Jack." His response came seconds later. "Until Sunday." Emma set her phone aside and stared at the ceiling, wondering when exactly this simple business arrangement had started to feel so complicated. Sunday dinner at the Thornton estate in Greenwich proved to be the first real test of their arrangement. Unlike the gala's public spectacle, this was intimate. Jack's Aunt Caroline scrutinizing Emma's every word, Harold watching them with thinly veiled hope, and Emma constantly catching herself, forgetting this was all fabricated. "So, Emma," Caroline asked over dessert, "where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Emma glanced at Jack, who offered no help. "Still practicing medicine, hopefully with a specialty in trauma surgery." "And where does Jack fit into those plans?" Caroline pressed. "We're taking it day by day," Emma replied diplomatically. Harold chuckled. "When you get to my age, you realize how precious little time there is for day by day." Jack squeezed Emma's hand under the table, their signal that he'd take over. "Gramps, not everyone rushes into lifelong commitments after a few months. Sometimes you just know, Harold countered, looking meaningfully between them. The uncomfortable truth was that Emma was beginning to feel like she did know Jack, beyond the practice script they'd created. She knew his coffee order, black, no sugar, that he unconsciously touched his watch when stressed, that despite his corporate exterior, he had a dry wit that occasionally caught her off guard. Dangerous knowledge for a fake relationship with a predetermined end date. Over the next month, their public appearances became routine. Charity functions, dinner at exclusive restaurants, weekend brunches where they might be spotted. Emma's hospital colleagues now treated her differently. Some with newfound respect, others with barely concealed curiosity about her billionaire boyfriend. Doctor. Jen actually listened to my treatment suggestion today, Emma told Jack, during one of their weekly planning dinners at his penthouse. Last month, he would have dismissed it without consideration. Jack looked up from reviewing their schedule. The Thornton effect told you there would be professional benefits. It's not entirely comfortable, Emma admitted. I want to be valued for my medical opinions, not my relationship status. In an ideal world, sure, Jack said pragmatically. But we work with the system as it exists. Emma studied him across the table, realizing how much their worlds had begun to merge. Her closet now contained designer clothes she'd never have purchased. She recognized faces at events that previously would have been anonymous wealthy people. She could navigate a 7-course meal without hesitation. Meanwhile, Jack had adapted to her world too, waiting patiently when emergency surgeries delayed their plans, bringing coffee to her overnight shifts, learning medical terminology to maintain their cover during hospital conversations. Jack, Emma said suddenly, do you ever worry about how easily we've fallen into this? His eyes met hers, unusually serious. What do you mean? Sometimes I catch myself forgetting this isn't real, she admitted. That's concerning. Jack set down his pen. We're good actors, that's all. But was it? The question haunted Emma as their second month of dating transitioned into their third. The lines between performance and reality blurred. Jack's hand finding hers even when no one was watching. Emma calling him first when she received good news at work. Inside jokes and shared glances that required no audience. The complication crystallized during a weekend at the Thornton Beach House in the Hamptons. Harold had insisted on a family getaway, and their contract obligated Emma to attend. After dinner on the deck overlooking the ocean, Harold retreated to bed early, leaving Emma and Jack alone with a bottle of wine and the sound of waves. He's looking better, Emma observed, genuinely pleased by Harold's recovery. The new medication seems to be working. Thanks to your recommendation, Jack acknowledged, refilling their glasses. He trusts you, you know, more than his regular doctors. I just suggested a consultation with the specialist, Emma demurred. Jack studied her in the fading light. You care about him. That wasn't in the contract. Emma looked away, unable to deny it. He reminds me of my grandfather, stubborn but well-intentioned. You never mentioned your grandfather before. He raised me after my parents divorced, Emma explained. Worked 2 jobs to put me through undergraduate school. Died my first year of medical school. Jack's hand covered hers, a gesture that had become familiar, yet still sent warmth through her. I'm sorry. He would have liked you, Emma said without thinking, then caught herself. The real you, I mean, not the performance. Jack's expression changed subtly. What makes you think this isn't the real me? Isn't that the point? None of this is real, Emma reminded him, pulling her hand away. In 5 weeks, we amicably part ways and move on with our lives. Jack was silent for a long moment before asking, is that still what you want? The question hung between them, dangerous and unexpected. Before Emma could formulate an answer, Jack's phone rang. Andrea, with a business emergency requiring his immediate attention. The moment shattered. Jack switched back to corporate mode, and Emma was left wondering what exactly had almost happened and what would have been her answer. The following week brought unexpected turbulence when tabloid photos emerged of Jack dining with Vanessa. his ex from the gala. The images showed nothing compromising. A business lunch, according to Jack, but the gossip columns speculated about trouble in paradise. It was nothing, Jack insisted when Emma confronted him. Vanessa's father is a potential investor. The lunch was Andrea's idea. You could have told me, Emma said, surprised by the genuine hurt she felt. I looked like a fool when the nurses showed me the article. Jack ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I didn't think it mattered. This isn't a real relationship, remember? The words stung more than Emma wanted to admit. Our agreement includes exclusivity during the contract period, for appearances' sake. Appearances are maintained, Jack countered. One business lunch doesn't change that. It does when it makes people question our relationship, Emma argued, which affects your inheritance and my reputation. The tension between them lingered for days, neither willing to acknowledge the real source of Emma's upset, not the contract violation, but the painful reminder that their relationship had an expiration date. Their reconciliation came unexpectedly at a hospital fundraiser where Emma was being honored for her work in the trauma center. Jack arrived late, having flown back early from a business trip in Tokyo specifically for the event. You didn't have to come, Emma said when he appeared beside her, still in his travel suit. It wasn't in the schedule. I wanted to be here, Jack said simply. This matters to you. Something shifted between them that night, an unspoken acknowledgement that their arrangement had evolved beyond its contractual parameters. Later, after Emma's award acceptance, Jack drove her home himself instead of using the car service. I'm proud of you, he said as they sat in comfortable silence. What you do, saving lives every day, it matters more than anything I accomplish pushing money around. Your foundation funds the research that makes my work possible, Emma pointed out. We're part of the same ecosystem. Jack smiled, the real smile that transformed his face, not the practiced one he used at events. When did you get so wise about my world? Around the same time you started understanding medical jargon, Emma replied, returning his smile. At her apartment door, their goodbye followed the now familiar pattern, Jack leaning in to kiss her cheek, maintaining their charade for any watching eyes. But this time, Emma turned her face slightly, their lips meeting in a brief, soft kiss that neither had planned. They broke apart, equally startled. For once, Jack seemed at a loss for words. That wasn't in the contract, he finally said, voice unusually rough. Consider it a contract violation, Emma replied, heart racing. Good night, Jack. She closed the door before he could respond, leaning against it as reality crashed down. What was she doing? In less than a month, this would all be over. The Foundation Gala, their final contracted appearance together, would mark the end of their arrangement. Jack would secure his inheritance, Emma would keep her financial freedom, and they would go their separate ways. So why did that scenario suddenly seem impossible to imagine? Emma's phone buzzed with a text from Jack. We should talk about this. She stared at the message, knowing he was right, but terrified of what that conversation might reveal. Finally, she typed, tomorrow, dinner at my place. Jack's response was immediate. I'll be there. Emma set down her phone, wondering how a simple business arrangement had become the most complicated situation of her life, and whether there was any way to protect her heart from what was coming. Emma spent the next day in a daze, second-guessing her dinner invitation and what exactly they needed to discuss. Was it just the kiss, or the larger reality that their fake relationship had developed very real dimensions? When Jack arrived at her modest apartment that evening, the first time he'd actually been inside rather than just dropping her off, Emma was struck by how out of place he should have looked among her mismatched furniture and medical textbooks. Instead, he seemed to fit seamlessly, as if he belonged in her space. Your roommates? He asked, noticing the quiet apartment. Night shifts, Emma explained, gesturing toward the simple dinner she'd prepared. I hope pasta's okay. I'm not exactly a gourmet chef. Jack smiled, removing his suit jacket. Believe it or not, I eat normal food when I'm not at business dinners. The domesticity of sharing a home-cooked meal felt dangerously intimate. They avoided the subject hovering between them until they'd finished eating and moved to Emma's small couch with glasses of wine. "About last night," Emma began, staring into her glass. "Which part?" Jack asked. "The kiss, or what it might mean?" "Both," Emma admitted. "I crossed a line we explicitly agreed not to cross." Jack studied her carefully. "Rules can be amended if both parties agree." "That's not the point," Emma sighed. "The problem isn't the contract terms. It's that in a few weeks this ends. It was always meant to end. Does it have to?" The question hung in the air between them. Emma finally looked up to meet his gaze. "What are you suggesting?" "I don't know," Jack admitted, running a hand through his hair, the nervous gesture she'd come to recognize. "That maybe what started as a business arrangement has become something else. Something real?" Emma asked quietly. "Yes." The silence that followed was heavy with possibility and fear. Emma was the first to break it. "Jack, we built this relationship on a lie. How could anything real come from that?" "Not everything was a lie," Jack argued. "The way I feel when I'm with you, that's real. The person I am around you, more real than the corporate mask I wear everywhere else." Emma felt her carefully constructed defenses weakening. "Even if that's true, we're from completely different worlds. You saw how my colleagues treated me differently just because of our relationship. I can't live in that spotlight permanently. And I can't go back to pretending," Jack said, his voice unusually vulnerable. "When this arrangement ends next week, I'm not sure I can just walk away." Before Emma could respond, her pager buzzed urgently. A multi-car accident requiring all available trauma staff. Reality intruded like a bucket of cold water. "I have to go," she said, already reaching for her keys. Jack nodded, understanding without explanation. "We'll finish this conversation later." "Jack." Emma paused at the door. "Whatever this is between us, it's complicated by how we started. I need time to think." The next 12 hours were a blur of emergency surgeries and critical decisions. The conversation with Jack temporarily pushed aside by life and death priorities. When Emma finally emerged from the hospital, exhausted but satisfied that they'd saved everyone they could, she found a text from Jack sent hours earlier. "Take all the time you need. I'll be waiting when you're ready to talk." The simplicity of the message brought tears to her eyes. In the taxi home, Emma confronted the truth she'd been avoiding. Somewhere along the way, she'd fallen in love with Jack Thornton, not the public persona or the wealthy heir, but the man who brought her coffee during overnight shifts, who listened intently when she spoke about medicine, who looked at her like she was something precious. The Foundation Gala, their final contracted appearance, was just 3 days away. Emma needed to decide. Walk away as planned, or risk everything on something that had begun as a deception. Her decision was complicated further when Harold Thornton was readmitted to the hospital the following day with concerning cardiac symptoms. Though no longer his doctor, Emma rushed to his room when Jack called. "Thank God you're here," Jack said, the relief evident in his voice. "The doctors aren't telling me much." Emma reviewed Harold's chart and spoke with his cardiologist, then returned to Jack, who was pacing the private waiting room. "It's serious, but treatable," she explained. "They're going to perform an angioplasty this afternoon." Jack nodded, visibly processing the information. "How dangerous is the procedure?" "For someone his age, there are risks," Emma said honestly. "But he's strong, and the alternative is worse." Jack collapsed into a chair, the weight of worry evident in every line of his body. Without hesitation, Emma sat beside him and took his hand. "He'll be okay," she assured him. "I'll stay with you through it." For hours, they waited together, not as fake partners maintaining appearances, but as two people who genuinely cared for each other, sharing fear and hope in equal measure. When the surgeon finally emerged with news of a successful procedure, Jack embraced Emma tightly, his relief palpable. "Thank you for being here," he whispered against her hair. "There's nowhere else I would be," Emma replied, the truth of the words resonating deeply. Later, as Harold rested in recovery, Jack and Emma sat beside his bed. The old man opened his eyes briefly, looking between them with a satisfied smile. "My two favorite people," he murmured before drifting back to sleep. In the corridor outside, Jack turned to Emma, his expression determined. "I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you weeks ago." "What is it?" Emma asked, suddenly apprehensive. "There is no inheritance clause," Jack admitted quietly. "No requirement for me to be in a relationship to take over the company." Emma stared at him, processing the revelation. "You lied?" "Yes," Jack acknowledged, holding her gaze. "But not for the reason you think." "Then why? Why this elaborate charade?" Jack took a deep breath. "Because I saw you that first day in the hospital. Brilliant, dedicated, completely unimpressed by wealth or status. And I wanted to know you. But I knew someone like you would never give someone like me a second glance without a reason." "So you invented one," Emma said flatly. "It wasn't entirely fabricated," Jack clarified. "Gramps has been pressuring me to settle down for years. The board does prefer a CEO with personal stability, but there was no formal clause, no deadline." Emma stepped back, trying to make sense of everything. "So our entire relationship is based on an even bigger lie than I thought." "No," Jack said urgently. "The beginning was based on a lie. But everything since, everything that's grown between us, that's real. At least it is for me." Emma shook her head, overwhelmed. "I need to process this, Jack. This changes everything." "It doesn't change how I feel about you," Jack insisted. "Or how you feel about me, if you do feel something." "I can't do this right now," Emma said, backing away. "Your grandfather needs you, and I need space." For the next 2 days, Emma avoided Jack's calls and messages, burying herself in work while trying to sort through her conflicted feelings. She felt betrayed by the initial deception, yet couldn't deny the genuine connection that had developed between them. The night before the Foundation Gala, what should have been their final appearance together, Emma stood at her window, watching the city lights and facing the decision she could no longer postpone. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jack. "I understand if you don't want to attend tomorrow. I'll explain your absence however you prefer, but I hope you'll give me a chance to make this right." Emma stared at the message, remembering everything they'd shared over the past months, the laughter, the quiet moments, the way Jack had gradually revealed his true self beneath the polished exterior. Could she walk away from that because their beginning had been unconventional? With sudden clarity, Emma realized what she needed to do. Her fingers typed quickly. "I'll be there tomorrow. We need to talk, really talk, after the gala." Jack's response was immediate. "I'll be waiting. And Emma? Thank you." The next evening, as Emma prepared for what might be either an ending or a beginning, she knew one thing with certainty. Whatever happened at the gala would be no performance. For the first time, she and Jack would face each other with complete honesty and discover if what had grown between them was strong enough to survive the truth. The Thornton Foundation annual gala transformed the Metropolitan Museum of Art into a glittering wonderland. Under normal circumstances, Emma would have been awestruck by the grandeur. The great hall decorated with cascading flowers, string quartets playing in every corner, New York's elite mingling beneath priceless art. Instead, her mind focused on a single purpose: finding Jack and having the conversation that would determine their future. She'd chosen her dress carefully, not one provided by Jack's stylists, but a midnight blue gown she'd purchased herself. It was her way of reclaiming agency in a relationship that had begun with an imbalance of power. As she entered the museum, heads turned. After months in the spotlight as Jack Thornton's girlfriend, Emma was now recognized in these circles. The attention still felt strange, but she'd learned to navigate it with growing confidence. "Emma," Harold's voice called from nearby. The elder Thornton, looking remarkably recovered in his tuxedo, approached with a wide smile. "You look stunning, my dear." "Harold," Emma greeted warmly, genuinely pleased to see him well. "How are you feeling?" "Never better," he declared. The doctors say I'm responding beautifully to treatment. I suspect having you in Jack's life has been my best medicine. The irony of his statement wasn't lost on Emma. Is Jack here yet? In meetings with donors, Harold said with a dismissive wave. Always business, that boy, though I've noticed a change in him these past months. He smiles more, seems unpresent, rather than always looking toward the next deal. Emma swallowed hard. Harold, there's something I should tell you. That you and Jack began your relationship under unusual circumstances? Harold interrupted, his eyes twinkling with mischief. My dear, I may be old, but I'm far from stupid. Emma stared at him in shock. You knew? Suspected from the beginning, Harold confessed. Jack has never looked at anyone the way he looked at you in that hospital room, but it seemed too sudden. When he announced you were dating, I put the pieces together. And you didn't say anything? Harold shrugged. Sometimes people need a little theatrical assistance to recognize what's right in front of them. Whatever brought you two together, what matters is what's grown between you since. Before Emma could respond, Harold nodded toward the entrance. Ah, speak of the devil. Jack stood in the doorway, scanning the crowd until his eyes found Emma. Even across the crowded room, the intensity of his gaze made her breath catch. He started toward her, navigating through well-wishers and board members with determined focus. I'll leave you two alone, Harold said knowingly, patting Emma's hand before slipping away. Jack reached her, looking more uncertain than Emma had ever seen him. Gone was the confident businessman, replaced by a man clearly afraid of losing something precious. You came, he said simply. I said I would, Emma replied, suddenly nervous despite her resolve. Can we talk somewhere private? Jack asked. There's a gallery they've closed off for the event. Emma nodded, allowing him to guide her through the crowd. His hand at the small of her back felt both familiar and electric, a touch she'd grown accustomed to over months of pretense that had never felt entirely pretended. The gallery was peaceful, illuminated only by subtle lighting on ancient Greek sculptures. Jack closed the door behind them, creating an island of quiet amid the gala's distant hum. Emma, before you say anything, he began, I need you to know that I never expected this to happen. Us, I mean. What started as a scheme to spend time with you became the most real thing in my life. Emma took a deep breath. I've been thinking about what you told me, about there being no inheritance clause. I was angry, hurt that you'd manipulated the situation. I'm sorry, Jack said, genuine regret in his voice. I should have been honest from the start. Yes, you should have, Emma agreed. But then I realized something. If you had just asked me out normally, I would have said no. Jack looked surprised. You would? Absolutely, Emma said with certainty. I would have seen only the wealthy businessman, the hospital benefactor's grandson, someone from a world I didn't belong in. I would never have gotten to know the real you. Hope flickered across Jack's features. And now? Now I know the man who brings me coffee during overnight shifts, who listens when I talk about difficult cases, who looks at his grandfather with such love, it makes my heart ache. Emma took a step closer to him. I know the real Jack Thornton, and that's the man I've fallen in love with, despite how we started. Jack stared at her, seemingly unable to believe what he was hearing. You love me? Against my better judgment, Emma admitted with a small smile. But yes, though we have a lot to figure out if this is going to work beyond tonight. Jack reached for her hands, holding them as if they were fragile treasures. I love you too, and I'm willing to figure out whatever we need to. My world, your career, all of it. No more contracts, no more pretending. Emma squeezed his hands. Your grandfather knows, by the way. Apparently we weren't as convincing as we thought. Jack laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that echoed among the ancient statues. That crafty old man. No wonder he's been so smug lately. He said sometimes people need theatrical assistance to recognize what's right in front of them. Wise man, my grandfather, Jack murmured, drawing Emma closer. So what happens now? Emma asked. After tonight, our contract ends. I was thinking we could negotiate new terms, Jack suggested, his arms encircling her waist. No expiration date, no financial transactions, just two people building something real together. Those terms sound promising, Emma said, her hands resting on his chest. Though I should warn you, I'm a tough negotiator. I'm counting on it, Dr. Park. Their lips met in a kiss that held no pretense, just the promise of a beginning based on truth rather than calculation. When they finally parted, Emma rested her forehead against Jack's, savoring the moment of perfect clarity. We should probably return to the gala, she said reluctantly. People will notice we're missing. Let them, Jack replied, but began guiding her toward the door nonetheless. One last public appearance as a fake couple before we start for real. Emma smiled. I think we stopped being fake a long time ago. As they rejoined the party, Harold caught Emma's eye across the room and raised his champagne glass in a subtle toast. Emma returned the gesture, silently thanking him for his theatrical interference in bringing them together. Later that night, as they danced beneath the museum's soaring ceilings, Jack whispered, "Remember our first gala? When I told you that relationships were just business partnerships with clear expectations and exit strategies?" "I remember thinking you sounded lonely," Emma replied. "I was," Jack admitted. "Until you changed everything." "For what it's worth," Emma said, "I think even the best partnerships need room to evolve beyond their initial terms." Jack smiled, the real smile she'd come to treasure. "Speaking of evolution, I was thinking of establishing a new foundation initiative, something to help medical professionals with student debt." "Inspired by anyone in particular?" Emma teased. "By a brilliant doctor who taught me that some things are worth more than money," Jack replied, "including love." Emma leaned up to kiss him briefly, no longer caring who was watching or what headlines might appear tomorrow. For the first time in their relationship, nothing was calculated or performed, just genuine emotion between two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. "So," Jack asked as they swayed to the music, "does this mean you'll be my date to next year's gala? No contract required?" Emma pretended to consider the question. "I suppose I could clear my schedule for the right incentive." "How about because you love me?" Jack suggested. "That works too," Emma conceded with a smile, "though I should warn you, loving you wasn't part of our original agreement." "Best contract violation ever," Jack murmured against her hair. As midnight approached, they slipped away from the gala, no longer bound by obligations or appearances. Walking hand in hand through the quiet museum corridors toward the future they would build together, one based not on convenience or calculation, but on the most unexpected and valuable discovery of all, love that had grown from the most unlikely beginning. In the car home, to Jack's penthouse this time, by mutual agreement, Emma rested her head against his shoulder and thought about how far they'd come from that first proposition in a hospital parking garage. What had begun as a transaction had transformed into something neither could have predicted or contracted for. A partnership of equals who had found in each other exactly what they hadn't known they were looking for. "Jack," Emma said quietly, as the city lights passed outside the window. "Thank you for lying to me." Jack laughed softly. "I think that might be the first time those words have ever been spoken in that order." "I mean it," Emma insisted. "If you hadn't given me that ridiculous proposition, we wouldn't be here now." Jack kissed the top of her head. "Then I suppose I should thank my grandfather for having impeccable timing with his cardiac event." "Don't push it," Emma warned, but couldn't help smiling. "Though I am glad he's doing better. He'll be even better when he finds out we're officially together," Jack pointed out. "Probably take full credit for the entire relationship." "Let him," Emma suggested. "He did give us our beginning, even if it wasn't exactly the one we told everyone." Jack's arm tightened around her shoulders. Some stories are better kept between the people who lived them. As the car glided through the nighttime streets, Emma realized that their story, unusual as it was, had led them exactly where they needed to be. What had started with a business proposition in a hospital parking garage had evolved into something neither money nor contracts could quantify. Two hearts finding their way to truth together, despite beginning with a lie. And that, Emma thought as she turned her face up for Jack's kiss, was the most surprising contract outcome of all.